Southwest Missouri.
Well, I would like to extend the board's congratulations to you, Josh, for your award. So congratulations, and thanks for representing us in the community and at schools the way that you do. So,
Well deserved. Speech.
More celebrations, friends. These are fun, right? So, Mo Case recognition. Janet Earl, Joplin Schools Director of Special Education, was presented the Missouri Council of Administrators of Special Education Recognition Award on Sunday, September 23rd for her outstanding contributions in the field of special education administration. Janet has worked in the field of special education for almost 50 years. Throughout her career with Joplin Schools, Janet has been instrumental in developing multiple programs and always been a champion for children with special needs. Her exceptional ability to partner with administrators, counselors, students, parents, teachers, and staff has earned her the position of the go-to leader. Janet works tirelessly, and although she has tried to retire, we are blessed that she continues to return and support Joplin Schools. Janet is here with us tonight. It's my pleasure to know her and to congratulate her on this recognition.
We keep making you come back, don't we? Won't let her go.
Our next celebration is there's more to agriculture than farming. Franklin Technology Center held its 5th annual Agricultural Expo on Thursday, September 20th. The expo provided students information on the constantly changing world of agriculture and promoted opportunities for employment and advanced education in the field of agriculture. Good job, students. Next is Grandparents' Day. Stapleton Elementary welcomed 300 grandparents. Wow, that's a bunch. For this year's celebration, grandparents had lunch and read books with their grandchildren. It was a fantastic day. Next is Training to Run with the Eagles. Columbia Elementary has 63 kindergarten and 5th grade students participating in a running club, along with 8 teachers and several parents. Club members have been training to compete in the Joplin Schools Foundation Run with the Eagles 5K in November. It's a good time to announce that there's a Joplin Foundation 5K in November, and we hope that people will participate in the Run with the Eagles. All the proceeds from that will go to the Joplin Foundation and the institutions that they support, which is your Joplin School District. Central Ozark Conference. Joplin Schools' transition to the Central Ozark Conference has had a positive effect on the local community. The excitement of competing against area teams has brought back local rivalries that are great for game day atmospheres and bring out the fans. Those pictures are great. You can see, I'm sure that was for the Webb City game. You can see just how many people are showing up to these games, and it is a lot of fun. Hope everybody will go to some events at our schools this year. So that is it for our celebrations, but that's a lot to celebrate. So good job and keep it up. Next, we are to the approval of the agenda. Does anybody have any changes to the agenda?
No.
There being none, I'd appreciate a motion to approve it.
So moved.
Thank you, Derek. It's been moved.
Second.
Thank you, Doctor. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor, please vote.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Board President's report. We just did the celebrations. I should have done the agenda first. I apologize. The Policy Committee update.
Yes. We met last week, and we have 13 policies for first read on the agenda tonight. All of those are from an update, the most recent update from MSBA. That's why there's so many on there. Basically statutory changes to those, and then 2 for second read tonight, so.
Thank you, Jennifer. Does anybody have any questions for the Policy Committee? Superintendent's data report.
And first up, our health and dental insurance reports and financial statements following. Dr. Langford.
Okay, I think you've all received those, and the information is scrolling up, but would like to say that our fund balance continued to grow over this past month. We saw less outflow due to claims as compared to a year ago. So we have almost $6 million in that fund right now. Of course, some of that is will be spent for claims that have been filed, and we process those claims every week, so there are checks that are out every week. But it's looking very, very good. Next Monday, we'll transition into the first day of the new plan that was adopted by the board earlier this spring. On the first compensation checks for the teachers who began their new school year, and many of the employees that the way their pay falls, not only did they see a benefit of the salary increase that was awarded, but also the reduction in the health claims. So I think that probably the teachers, I know those who were paying the premiums are going to feel good. We continue to monitor it very closely, and I still remind Sarah and Jamie that they have a lot of promises that have been made, and but we'll just be optimistic going forward. We right now invest those monies, and we think this year that in the investments for the health fund we'll generate about $100,000 in investment earnings. We think we will exceed that. So that's some additional money that's going forward. So you have all the information. We'll be glad to entertain any questions and see if we could answer them.
So the new plan starts October 1st, is that
Yes,
right?
Yes.
correct.
Okay.
So
So
that,
do we already have, I'm just curious, how many more participants we have? Do you, and maybe I didn't think about asking this before, but we have 824 total participants, retirees, and certified classified staff. Do you have any idea yet how many we have starting October 1? Are we increasing?
We definitely are increasing. We did have an increase of enrollment.
the last number I saw was 38.
Yes, and that was before
Yes.
some individuals that we were still gathering. So we had the massive round 1 of sending information, but we had a few stragglers we were catching up on. So at minimum, we are definitely up over 38.
Oh, good. Good. That's great.
The next item you have in the superintendent's data report is enrollment report, and you have a couple of pages there. I do have to admit that we're not extremely confident in the numbers in that first page just yet because of the rollover from Infinite Campus to Synergy. There may be a little bit of overinflation in 17 numbers as opposed to a little bit under. We're looking at how our attendance is calculated when students may be out of the building perhaps for 30 minutes, but the system's still wanting to grab that as a full day absence. So your report is included, but until we get all the bugs worked out of our movement to the new student information system, I can't guarantee those numbers are going to stay the same. Good news in that second page is you will see individual classroom counts across our schools, and you'll see that we are improving in our student-teacher ratios. And if you look back last year, or particularly the year before last, you can see that those numbers overall have gone down, and that's a good thing for student service.
I know
Go
we,
back one item to financial
Oh, did I go
statements.
too fast?
It's okay, I've been
Oh,
doing
I'm
that
sorry.
myself.
I cut you off.
may I ask a question about this enrollment, though, before we leave it?
Sure.
Soaring Heights kindergartens, 26, 28, 27, is that something we're fixing?
We just approved.
That's the kindergarten
okay.
teacher that you
I wanted to
approved.
make sure. And then I see Soaring Heights enrollment is big.
We have
And I
some
know there's a lot
campuses
of
really
building going on
increasing.
out there.
Yes.
So is there a plan on what we're going to do when
I think you
Soaring
have
Heights
an
gets
item in
so
your
big?
open
Okay.
agenda that we'll talk about that a little
Okay.
bit. Sorry, Dr. Langford.
Not a problem.
I'm in a rush.
School district exists to serve students, so maybe the student count ought to be before the financial account. That's why we're here.
It does drive.
The financial statements, again, we have the single-page report, and then you have also the documents that provide more information. I would point out 2 or 3 things on this because this gives a quick glance of what is happening. If you compare fiscal year 19 with the prior year, if we take a look as far as revenue are concerned, I was asked the question just before the meeting about, okay, it looks like we're spending more than we're taking in. Well, obviously, we do that most months. But if you look, if there are local revenues, only $2 million, well, we won't start seeing those local revenues show up until December when people pay their county taxes and we start getting the distributions. We'll see a nice amount come in. We get about half of our operational monies through the local taxes. So if you take a look overall, we're in good shape on the other billing compared to last year. On revenue side, we're ahead. I attribute some of that is to the fact that we've gotten more efficient in the billing for students that were out of the district but being served by the students, and then there are always those single things that come up that we get some revenue for. If you notice on the revenue as far as federal is concerned, we will lag behind all year in federal revenue, largely because of the money we were getting for the payment for the construction of the new early childhood center. So as you go forward and you compare 18 to 19, 19 is going to be less than 18, but that is the major contributing factor. If we look down at the expenditure side, we take a look at on the special teachers or the teachers fund. Again, if you look at a year ago, we're 400 some thousand ahead, but that again is largely due to the expanded summer school that was paid in this year's budget that was had last summer. So you will see that number increasing because of summer school, and then also we will start seeing the increased salaries that were issued this year. So we will see our expenditure in special teachers fund be greater than last year, but that's all by design and it's all budgeted and covered for. And then the only other thing to point out, if you look at debt service, a year ago we had $300. This year we had $2 million. Well, that's because the first of the month, or 1st of September, fell on a weekend, so that was the debt that was paid. A year ago it was paid on September 1st. Well, September 1st it just got paid on like August 29th or something to that effect. So overall, we continue to monitor it. We're in good financial shape. We have investments laddered out to become available going through each year, so we can take our state money that we get. We get a little bit of local money, but not a whole lot. And then we have investment monies we'll be bringing back to the district to meet the expenses that will be for the months of October and November. And then in December, we'll start seeing our money come in, and we'll be reinvesting at that point, laddering it out so we can get our maximum earnings on investments. But I think the overall financial condition of the district remains good, and we're optimistic that it will remain so throughout the year. Be glad to answer any questions. Very good.
Does anyone have any questions for Dr. Langford? Thank you, Doctor.
And finally, we have a Eureka Math presentation. Dr. Gilbert?
All right. Thank you, Dr. Moss. We brought to you guys last year for the approval of a K-5 mathematics adoption, and wanted to follow up and kind of give you guys a little bit of some information about Eureka Math. The thing about Eureka Math that is different from any other math program that you will find is Eureka Math has with it a fair amount of rigor. So as mathematic programs go, it has in it the ability to super challenge kids. The great thing about that is it is also very scripted, and it has all of the pieces to give teachers the things that they need to be successful, so in turn to make kids successful with vocabulary. It's taught in a little bit of a different way in that some people will ask, well, why don't we just line up numbers and add and subtract, multiply and divide? Why don't we just teach it just the algorithms of mathematics? And the reason that it's designed the way it is so that it does teach the algorithms of math, but it also gives a visual presentation to kids, like through tape diagrams and through number bonds, and through the way that it's set up. This evening, we have a young lady here that's going to teach a math lesson to you guys this evening with Eureka. And I will say that this being the first year, we have rolled out a really good professional development program for teachers. We took, as you well know, you approved 48 teachers to go to Oklahoma City. And then we had our first day back. Those teachers began a professional development with all teachers in the district. We have 4 professional development after school meetings. We have a Google Doc that's created that teachers can upload questions and, hey, how do you do this? How do you do that? And I'm struggling with this, or here's a great idea for that. 4 different times between now and Christmas that teachers will meet in grade levels to go through this and touch base with one another. We'll continue that after Christmas and then continue the professional development next summer. For a group of teachers that did not get the actual week long of training. So the other thing that I think, before I turn it over to Brandy, the thing that I'm really excited about with Eureka Math is an example that I can tell you. When, like, let's say you're going to find the area of a triangle. Okay, the way you find the area of a triangle with some is you just multiply the dimensions, right? Okay, well, with Eureka Math, they have a system where they divide this rectangle up and put numbers on the outside and do some additional math. Here's the great thing about that. As kids migrate through the grades, once kids hit middle school, they're going to be asked to find irregular shapes. They've already done it. By the time they get to high school and into 8th grade pre-algebra, they're going to be asked to multiply polynomials. They've already done it. And so the other thing about Eureka is every day there's an exit ticket. And so we know where kids are in their progression along the way. Every other day, and practically every day, it reviews the day before. So it's an ongoing process of teaching mathematics by reviewing, where no other math program, you teach a concept and you move on. You got it or you didn't. The beauty of Eureka Math is that it continues to review all of those major things, those priorities, if you will, the standards that kids need to be successful. I will tell you that with this being the implementation year, getting teachers on board and kind of teaching the vocabulary, understanding how it works with anything new, there's going to be some growing pains, and you'll probably hear about that and see it along the way. Homework that would be sent home, we would say we'd like to not send a ton of homework home, because a lot of the homework is very open-ended. It's like there's 2 or 3 right ways there are 2 or 3 correct answers to get at a problem. And once kids move through the grade levels, they begin to understand, they begin to have a mathematical mind about it, if you will, and they understand that, oh, I kind of see this, and it makes sense how there's more than one way to get at this, especially like place value. Like it gives you lots of different ways to aggregate place value and to kind of move through that. So anyway, we'll let Ms. Landis, I'll help you get set up, and then we'll entertain some questions.
I'm going to pass out some materials that you'll need for your lesson.
You want me to pass this out?
That would be great. Now, you can make sure everyone got it. There is marker.
I'm not
I think
playing.
that's it.
I couldn't figure it out with my daughter. I don't know. Are you smarter than a 5th grader? Are you smarter than a 3rd grader?
Don't forget your name on your paper.
And the date.
Thank you.
Yeah, really can talk. I am too. Thank you. just kidding. I'm just, no, I was just kidding.
I think that's a wise choice.
You what? I was just being. Oh, my favorite color.
3 hours to bring one home for my son.
We can move it out
Oh,
where
wow, I had to have a race sport because I had to
everybody
stop.
can see it.
Oh, I'm not doing it.
I assess a lot of kids, and what I see sometimes is simple problems, you know.
Can
They
everybody
do
see
all
it?
this different,
The audience members, if you'd like to peek around, feel free to jump up and get engaged here.
you know,
I'm the same way.
All right, so I will be reviewing the 4 main components of every lesson. Every lesson starts with fluency. So in 3rd grade, our main focus in Module 1 is multiplication strategies. So we do a lot of skip count for our fluency. So if you would join me, whenever I point up, we're going to be counting up by 2s. Whenever I make this motion, we're stopping. Whenever I point down, we're going to be counting back. All right, so join me. We're going to start with 2 and end at 20. 2,
4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20.
Now with the students, I would go even slower than that to make sure that they really are having time to process. Then I would stop them there and we would go backwards. 20. We stopped at 20, so we'd start at 18.
18, 16, 14, 12, 10, 8, 6, 4, 2, 0.
And we would stop. Now I can challenge them and I can go up and down a little bit. It's usually hard for students to get out of those teens and go from 18 to 20, or sometimes 20. They can get to 20, but they're not quite sure what happens after that. So I'll show you what I would do there. 2,
4, 6, 8, 6, 4, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 22,
20. So I could continue as long as we needed to. Fluency usually lasts between 3 and 5 minutes. I try to keep it at 3. It is not something that you have to open. A teacher has to open the lesson with. We can do fluency whenever we're lining up to go outside. We can do fluency whenever we're packing up to go home. Now, I want them to see my signals. It's important that they can see me, so packing up to go home wouldn't be the best. But just skip counting fluently by 2s and 3s. Right now, we're focused on 2s and 3s. Would be the most beneficial. Okay. So the second part of the lesson is my favorite part of the whole day. That's our application problem. So the reason it's my favorite is because I pose a question to the students. Our question today is Anna picks 24 flowers. She makes equal bundles of flowers and gets 1 bundle to each of her 7 friends. She keeps a bundle for herself too. How many flowers does Anna put in each bundle? So the students would normally have a whiteboard that would look like this. It wouldn't have your template inside. And they would have their dry erase marker, and they'd be on the carpet in front of me, and I would tell them, I want you to solve this problem in any way you can think of. So if you would like to take the time to solve, you're welcome to do that. The application problem is great for many reasons, mainly because the students are being challenged to stretch their brains and try on their own. I'm not giving them assistance. They know that I won't. We call it struggle time, and there are some great posters for struggle time. Struggle time is really when students are going to learn the most, because they're going through that process of trial and error. They might try something, and then I'll see them erase, or they'll just exit out, and they'll try again. They are tempted sometimes to look at their neighbor on the floor, but I always bring them back. Remember, have confidence in yourself. You can do this. It's not about getting it right or being wrong. It's just putting themselves out there and trying it on their own. So I'll show you a couple of ways that my students would have solved this problem. Now, most of my students early in the year, this is lesson 7. If I give them one of these during lessons 1, 2, or 3, they probably wouldn't have picked up on the fact that Anna is keeping a bundle for herself, which caused them to have 8 people total. They would pay attention to that 7. But by lesson 7, most of have recognized that, okay, there are 8 people. She can't trick me this time. So some of them would use an array to solve. They would recognize that there are 8 people, and they would put one row of 8, and they would realize that I have to keep counting by 8 until I get to 24. That's my stopping point. So they would label the 7 friends, they would label Anna, and then they would just continue counting by 8s until they got to 24, and that would help them see that there are 3 flowers in each bundle. Some of them would use a number bond. I have to say for this problem, a number bond is not the best strategy to use, but it is a possible strategy. So if they recognize that there were 24 total flowers, and there were 8 groups, the lines coming out of the middle represent the groups, and then these circles on the edges, those represent the number in each group. Early on, it was probably less than 1, my students were recognizing that multiplication problems have 3 parts. They've got the groups, the number in each group, and then the total, which they learned later is called the product. Right now, this was starting to move them into division also. So some of them would just use the traditional algorithms. They would write those out. They would recognize that we knew 24 and 8, those are what we call our knowns. And then we have our unknown, so we leave those blank until we're able to visually show our work. And then we can plug those in. One thing I'd be able to share with you is that this is called the RDW strategy. We read the problem, we draw out a solution, and then we write a complete sentence answer, RDW. If they weren't sure of the number that went on the outside of the number bond, they would use a strategy called the fair share strategy. This is what most of my students use. They love this one. So when they know the total number in a division problem and they know the number of groups, they draw that number of groups. So they've got 8 circles to represent one of each of the students that receive flowers. And then they just start here with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. They continue going through and counting until they get to 24. So they're giving everyone their fair share. That helps them see that 24 divided by 8 is 3, or 24 divided by 3 is 8. Later they'll learn that as well. And then they write their complete sentence answer. And it puts 3 flowers in each bundle. Any questions about our application problem? Okay. After my students, I usually give them about 6 minutes. I really watch their hints and see how many of them are still moving after 5 minutes and if they need more time. They're very good about waiting on each other. But once the majority has finished, then I have them show me their boards, and I will ask a couple of them who I can see solved in different ways and feel comfortable sharing. I'll ask them to come up and explain to the class how they solved the problem. That helps just solidify the fact that we can come up with multiple ways to solve a problem. There's not just one way anymore. And that also makes them feel more at ease whenever they go to solve a problem. They know, okay, my paper doesn't have to look like my neighbor's. I can come up with a different way to solve. Okay, put this back in here. All right, so after the application problem, that's the heart of our lesson, is when the heart of our lesson comes in. That's called concept development. So for concept development, before I would write anything on my whiteboard, I would have this template for them, and they would slide it into their dry erase board. These, by the way, are suggested by Eureka. It's just a sleeve with 2 pieces of cardstock. One needs to be a color. We say ready on red. So if they're doing their work and they're just dying to show me what they got, we just tell them ready on red. They show me red, and then I know how many of them are ready to share. But I would show them this array. And I would tell them that today what I needed them to do was figure out a multiplication equation that would match this array. So by this time in the school year, they understand all the parts of a multiplication problem. So the first thing they would do is count their number of rows. They understand that rows go from left to right and columns go from top to bottom. And they would see that there are 10. So there are 10 rows, and each row has 2. 10 rows of 2, and then they would skip count or do what we call a count by, which is just a skip count. So 2, 4, 6, 8, and they would continue until they got to 20. Then they would write in their product there, 20. And then for today's lesson, what I want them to realize is that you can change the direction of the array and you get the exact same product. So after this, I would tell them to please turn their whiteboards horizontally. And I would tell them now, I want them to write a multiplication equation for this new array. And so I'd give them some time to do that. They'd recognize there are 2 rows or 2 groups of 10. And I would ask them to skip count. So they would put a 10 and a 20, put a 20 there. Then I would ask them, they're all sitting in rows on the carpet, so they have shoulder partners. So they would turn to face their shoulder partner, and I would tell them that their job is to figure out some similarities and some differences between these 2 multiplication equations. So I give them some time to do that. And of course, they're going to recognize that the product stays the same. The product is 20. Some of them would say it's the exact same array. No matter how you look at it, you can turn it. And they would notice that these factors are the same. So they've started using those vocabulary terms by now, factors rather than just numbers that we multiply. And they would realize that we're just really trading places, or the factors are trading places. So then I would continue on the board. They would erase this, and then they would take it out, and they would place it in between their cardstock sheets so that then they've got a nice clean board to write on. And there is a later lesson when we could use this template again. So then we would practice some more that I would pose to them. I would tell them, all right, draw me an array with 4 rows of 2. And then I want you to skip count that array. Show me a count by that matches that array. So they would write 2, 4, 6, and 8. Write me a multiplication equation that matches that array. And then I would tell them, all right, now let me see one with 2 rows of 4. Keep this on your board and add to it. And we would walk through these until I could tell they were starting to get it on their own. Usually it takes about 3 to 4 practices. And then I would tell them that what we're practicing today is called the commutative property. The commutative property tells us the order of the factors doesn't matter. If you're multiplying 2 numbers, you can trade places with those, and they'll still be able to get the same answer. But then this throws them a little bit. So then I'll show them 3 times 8 equals 8 times 3. And they're thrown because they've not, at this point, seen anything like this. So they're thinking, why did she stick that equal sign in the middle? She must have gotten that wrong. But I will ask them to either agree or disagree with this statement. The majority is going to disagree with this statement. And so then I'll say, all right, remember how we were drawing arrays to go with our multiplication equations? For these multiplication expressions, I want you to draw an array that shows me 3 groups of 8, and then show me another array for 8 groups of 3. And that's when the light bulbs start to turn on. They start thinking, oh my gosh, we just did this. So they're able to take their board, and they're able to physically move it and turn it and look at it in different ways. And then they can finally arrive at the conclusion that, yes, these really are equal. I should agree. Any questions with concept development? Okay. At the end of the concept development, I give them their problem set. So that's what you have in front of you. There's a problem set. It's usually 2 pages. Thank you very much. Usually 2 pages. And if you'll notice, I marked, or I labeled each number either with an M, a C, or a P. So we don't want to give the students the entire problem set and expect them to complete it all. We actually just give them 10 minutes. That's a time frame that Eureka gives us. And honestly, at first, when I first started teaching this, I thought, 10 minutes, how are they supposed to get it all done in 10 minutes? But once you realize they're not supposed to get it all done in 10 minutes, it makes perfect sense. They've done all this practice with me on their whiteboards. This is a time for them to either work independently or with a partner. I prefer to have my students work with a partner because I know a lot of times those that are still struggling and not catching on, they can have, their peer can explain it in a way that I wasn't able to get through them. So they work very well together. The M's are the must-dos. So those are the first problems that they attack whenever they have their 10-minute time started. Then the C's are can-dos. If they get done with the must-dos, they can move on to those if there is time. And then I give the P's, the picks. So on number 4, you'll see there were 7 problems. That's overwhelming for any student. Most students would look at this and think, oh my gosh, especially if they're struggling in math, I can't do this. So it just gives them some freedom to realize, all right, I don't have to do all of those. She's telling me I can pick 3 of them, and 4 get to remain blank, and that's okay. On the back, there are 2 other picks, number 6 and 7. Those problems are very, very similar. So it's not important to me that they try to solve both of them. I'm just going to let them choose one, because really they're getting the same type of information, which is it's all about the commutative property. Are they grasping that or are they not? As you go through the problem set is scaffolds. So the problems in the beginning are much easier than those at the end. There are also problems called extensions. So the ones at the end that are usually your multi-step problems or your word problems, those are problems that not every teacher would want to give to their class. It might be one that they want to work with together. If they've got some students who are working at a higher level, I would definitely give them the extensions and say, you know what? Instead of you 2 working on number 1 and 2 for the must-do, I really want you to go and do number 7 and 8 and have them work on those last ones. So it is easy to differentiate whenever you're working on the problem set. You don't have to assign the same must-dos to every child. Once the students have had their 10 minutes, the timer goes off and they come back to the carpet with me and I work through the must-dos with them. There's generally 3 to 4 must-dos that I assign. So it takes probably 6 minutes because we've already done so many together. They've already solved. But this turns into a, the words just left me, they take it home and use it, a homework helper. They use it on their homework so that if they get stuck, this is there to help them. I want you to take a look at the homework. The homework is a mirror of the problem set. So if I give them 10 minutes in class to complete these must-dos, I want them to take 10 minutes at home to complete these must-dos. The C's and the P's still apply. If they feel like picking one of those problems, they're welcome to do it. If they feel like going ahead and doing the can-dos, I want them to try those. I tell them that makes them better mathematicians, stronger mathematicians if they do that. But I only ask that they complete the must-dos. So they've already practiced some of those problems that are very similar in class, and then they take this home. It is not graded. The problem set is never graded because it's something that we go over together. We'll talk about the exit ticket here in just a minute. Let me go to the 4th part of our lesson first. After the concept development, there is the student debrief. So I still have them on the carpet with me, and this is a time when I want to just ask them about their learning. What are you struggling with? What's making sense? What isn't making sense? Those are usually the questions that I ask, but Eureka does give teachers about 4 usually questions to choose from. These are just 3 examples. How did rotating our boards help us see rows as columns and columns as rows? What did you learn today about changing the order of the factors? And then this question pertains to like the 2 times 6 equals 6 times 2. Can you think of different number sentences Mrs. Ninadal could have written to get at the same idea in problem 6, if that had been a must-do that I assigned them? Let's see. If there are any problems, some of them are able to get done with the must-dos, and they are just dying to have me help them solve one of the pick problems or one of the could-do problems. Then I take time to do that with them. Okay, the last thing, well, that actually wraps up our lesson for the day. When we start the next week, the first thing I give them is an exit ticket that tests them over this information. So their exit ticket for the following day would be 2 times 5 equals 5 times 2. Do you agree or disagree with the statement in the box? Draw arrays and use skip counting to explain your thinking. So this is something that we've covered the day before pretty thoroughly. The thing that my students are currently struggling with the most are that this has many parts. They have to agree or disagree, they have to draw a race, and they have to use skip counting. So that's 3 different steps. So I'm just teaching them to go through, and as they complete one of the steps, cross it out. Look at what's your next step, cross it out. And make sure that they have everything there, and then go proofreading before they turn it in. Okay, that is the end of my little lesson for you. Does anyone have any questions?
I do have some questions.
Okay.
And I'm going to speak to you as a frustrated parent.
Okay.
What grade is this?
This is 3rd grade.
Okay, my son's in 5th, and he can pop off answers. When it comes to this, he doesn't understand. So then Dad works 16 hours and comes home and spends 3 hours on the computer trying to figure out a Eureka math. And this does explain a little bit of it, but I don't think so much the board needs to hear it as our stakeholders, because there's a lot of frustrated parents. I've taken a lot of phone calls, and of course I'm frustrated as well, because I'm 46 and I don't do math this way.
I understand that. I didn't either.
The pacing of students, if you have students that are falling behind and you have some that are going to pick it up a little quicker, what are the teachers doing to make sure everybody's staying together?
I know, I can tell you that I differentiate. For example, whenever I give them the problem set, I differentiate on the problem set. On the exit ticket, if they're not understanding it the first time, that's not, I do take grades on exit tickets. I choose in my class to take the 3rd exit ticket we complete, every 3rd ticket I take a grade on. So if they're not understanding that, I pull those kids for a small group. I ask them to stay for tutoring. We have a homework center at our school that we started on Wednesdays, and I'm able to help catch them up that way. We use a computer program called Zern, which is free. Not all schools are able to implement that because maybe the teacher is not able to get that many computers for his or her class during that amount of time. I understand that. We're fortunate at Kelsey that we just received computers last year, so we can do that. But what Zern lessons do, they go right along with Eureka. I mean, it's like hand in hand. So I can teach the Eureka math lesson. My students can then work on Zern, and I think of it as double dipping. So it is doing no more than helping them. It in no way can harm them. If they don't get the answers right after they watch the little lesson on Zern, then they can go back and they can watch it again. It gives them things called boosts. If they're doing well, they continue moving forward. We have little troubleshooting things that the kids can do if they get stuck on Zern. Zern has been very helpful. That is something that is free that parents can sign their children up for.
And what is the support for parents from the teacher?
There are some letters that can go home. It may be that all of our teachers aren't quite aware of those letters yet. They don't come from Eureka necessarily. There is Embark is another site. It was created by teachers. I believe it's created by teachers. It's something that we want to use as teachers as a supplement. We don't want to use it as our curriculum. It has slides that we can use, so instead of having the application problem written out or just saying it to the kids or printing it on paper, we can display it on our smart board. Embark provides quizzes. So I use the quizzes. That's another way I decide, are my students as a whole ready to move on or not? After every 3, sometimes 4 lessons, they take a quiz that covers those 3 lessons. Lets me know, all right, are they getting this? Are they ready to move on or not? I can tell you that the vocabulary is tough. Some of the students just aren't used to the vocabulary. But in the few years that we have taught it at Kelsey Norman, our 5th grade teachers will tell you that our 3rd graders who have done it, or the students that we started with 3.5 years ago, they're coming in with so much more knowledge on how to solve problems. They have a lot of strategies in their back pocket. So they understand that sometimes they can use arrays, sometimes they can draw number bonds, sometimes it's just understanding how the division and multiplication sentences go together. They can use Fair share strategies, count bys. There are all these strategies that Eureka introduces for those students, and we're teaching them, you find the strategy that works best for you. That's the one I want you to stick with for now.
One of the problems I have with it, and again, I'm speaking to you as a parent, fortunately I'm a board member and I get to do this. My son is one that can look at something and fix it. And well, Bud, your teacher says you can't do it that way. Well, Dad, that's stupid. That's not the way you fix problems. So my son is not failing, but he's falling behind in math because he doesn't understand this circles and doing all this the same way when he brought it to me, and then I look like an idiot in front of my son and my daughter. So I think the way the program was implemented, from personal opinion, was done a little wrong. And I think there needs to be some more support for parents, because I'm taking phone calls every day, text message, emails, and even some from former Joplin teachers that said some things. So I think there needs to be some more support for parents, because I'm not spending 3 hours every night trying to teach my son this.
That is one of the reasons that I think it's important to send the problem set home. That's why I think it's important to go over the types of problems I'm going to expect my students to practice at home, to practice with them in class. I make sure that they have them solved correctly. If my students didn't answer number 1 correctly, I tell them I want you to erase it, and this is what I want you to take home, so that they have a model. I also tell my students and parents, if your student is struggling, I ask that they work on it for 10 minutes.
Well, you're explaining it a lot easier. I mean, if you were my son's teacher teaching my son, I'd feel a lot more comfortable, I guess is what I'm saying.
My hope is that through the training that we're providing, those of us that went to Oklahoma City, those of us that have been teaching it for a longer amount of time, my hope is that we can convey all of this to those teachers, because when we first started Eureka, we were overwhelmed as well. Mm-hmm. Now, that is because it's rigorous. There's a lot to every lesson. There's teachers for this, they can't just pick up a manual and just teach it. We have to study it. So as teachers, to be quite frank, we're not used to having to pick it up and study it first. But we have to do that. We've got to, everything is laid out very well. If you were to look at the problem set, you'd notice that it'll go like, if they give a problem that is 3 times 4, the next problem is probably going to be 6 times 4. So they worked with groups of 4 here. They're still going to work with groups of 4, just more groups of 4. It's scaffolded very well. In our training, we were able to see all of that. I was amazed at how much thought goes into all of this. And I knew that the homework mirrored the problem set, but I didn't realize how much thought all of the teachers and the professionals other professionals put into developing this.
And all this is to do is help them develop as they go further in.
Yes,
we're not counting circles in college, are we? I haven't been in a long time.
What we want them to do is to become problem solvers. So I want them to see a problem and be able to come up with a solution to that problem, and to be able to back up the answer with proof. I want them to have evidence. Prove to me that that's the right answer. How do you know that's the right answer? I understand there are those kids, and they will be the ones who struggle the most. They're like, well, it's 24 divided by 8 is 3. And I'll tell them, you are absolutely right. I'm giving you a point for that if that's something I'm grading. But let's stretch you a little further. What strategy have I shown you that made sense to you? And you could draw a picture to show me some evidence to prove, where does your 24 come from? Where does your 8 come from? Can you show me 8 groups? Anything like that. It's really to get that higher order thinking, to get them to.
And I'll say one last thing, and then we'll go on. And my son will tell me, Dad, because that's the answer, because I know it. Like what they want you to show. And that's what I think a lot of the parents are having an issue with, because we weren't taught this way. I'm not counting circles.
I have to be honest. I hated math as a child. I went home crying. I didn't want to go to school. I loved school. But I was a failure in math. I didn't understand it. It didn't make sense. Math, I am so passionate about teaching math, because I have all of these strategies to show my students, all these ways they can solve. And if number ones don't make sense to them right now, I know that if I keep showing them number ones here and there, eventually they're going to start making sense. So So my assumption is that your son probably, this is his first year with Eureka.
Yeah, he's in 5th grade, so
Okay.
he's having to learn 3 years previous, which is even more frustrating.
Yeah.
And he has gotten to the point, as a lot of his friends, parents that we've become friends with
Yes.
during school, because all of us parents are, I mean, this is going to drive a guy to drink and smoke and all kinds of stuff. I mean, looking at that stuff. And then I get a parent call and going, did you figure this out? No, I didn't figure it out. Hold on, I can't cuss in front of the kids. I mean, it's ridiculous. Frustrated parents gone, let's go back to board member. It's frustrating.
I'm sure that will come up at our teachers' meetings. I'm sure it will.
Well, I'm hoping my wife and all her friends don't
suggestion to
show
them
up.
will be that they are doing something similar to what I'm doing. Only ask that your student is working on a set number of problems each night.
Well,
If they're struggling, I tell my parents, if your child still is having trouble, write me a quick note, need help, at the top. And they're going to turn it in, it's going to say need help, I know, all right, tutoring paddle right there.
on behalf of the board, I want to thank you for coming here and teaching us some Eureka math problems. That's not an easy thing to do, to come in front of a group and give a lesson. I certainly appreciate Derek's problem. I think that I learned math by just learning your tables and whatever, but this seems to be an opportunity for students who learn through visualization to perhaps make gains in that area. And so I certainly see the benefits of that as well. So thank you again for providing that to us.
Thank you, Brandon. Nice job.
Nice job. I got the same phone calls Derek called, and so I called the principal and said, I want to come watch. So I went actually to a school and watched a lesson, and I went in with the same concerns that Derek has just expressed, and I learned a lot. And one thing that I learned was that this is really great for special ed kids, because the teacher was working in small groups, and I'd never seen small group math. So she's working with a small group, and they happen to be kids on an IEP. And drawing those circles and visualizing them out helped them to really understand it. While that group was doing that, another group was doing this the teacher had a group doing concept development. There was another group working on their exit strategies. There was another group working on the Zern, which I think really all of our elementary should have access to Chromebooks so they could do Zern, because it was wonderful reinforcement. But I was there for an hour and 5 minutes, and there was zero discipline. There was 100% engagement. I heard vocabulary words that I was going, what's that? And so I left there saying, this is really a wonderful program, because it's teaching students the concept of why math works, not just how you work a problem. I was taught how to do fractions, but I never understood what a fraction really meant until, what's a half of an eighth, till I had to start teaching it. So I left there with a completely different perspective on it. One thing this principal told me is she had parent nights. That addresses your issue. She videotaped her teachers and posted those on YouTube or wherever, so parents could go online and look. And then she did tell me there was an online resource for parents, but I forgot the name.
It's in Great Minds. There's all kinds of resources for parents.
Yeah, so I would tell a parent, I bet your teacher would be more than happy for you to come up and observe a lesson if you want to go up and observe a lesson. And then what she said tonight, they should be taking home that form with them that they worked on in class, so there should be a model for them too. So I went in very skeptical and left pretty convinced that this is a pretty good math program.
Yeah, and we are, just so you know.
At the school level.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say,
We are
you need to
gonna
address
have-
at the school level and talk to the teacher and go in and ask those questions of the teacher and the principal and, yeah.
Well, we need to make sure they're all on the same page.
Right, and we
they're
also
not.
need to remember
And they're
that.
not.
And they're not.
Right,
And that's-
but
and
we
that's
also
the
need to
problem.
remember, we've only implemented this, this is the 4th week?
Yeah.
And Derek's probably
4
right.
weeks,
We
guys.
probably
We
could
need
have
to give them some
implemented if
time.
we'd started at kindergarten, then moved to first, then moved to
That
second.
would have been
But we
easier.
didn't.
Well, part
Yeah.
of my
And it
issue
is what it
is my
is.
son had an IEP,
Yeah.
and it was a certain amount of hours, and I don't know, but now it's tripled because of this Eureka. And that's what I'm frustrated about when he goes, Dad, you just moved the decimal, and here's the answer. And I go, you're absolutely correct.
Yeah.
That's the issue I have.
But I think the
They've been doing it
video's
3
huge.
years. And
Right.
so they said their scores the first year didn't change, the second year minor change, but the third year. So by the time third graders were now fifth graders. I mean, they had it, and their scores just rocketed. But more
And see,
importantly, the kids are understanding how to do math. I think Stapleton had piloted it. There were 4 schools that piloted it.
I don't remember.
Stapleton had piloted it in some grades. Nobody piloted in every grade.
Right.
So
And he's
I think
4
3
years
years
behind
from
on
now,
it.
we'll see great things. But right now, there's a lot of struggle going on.
Oh, yeah.
But I think he's got some good PD and plans
Absolutely. And
in
here's the
place.
thing, any math program in the world is a learning curve for teachers. There's no math. And the truth of the matter is, mathematics is one of those things that 80% of people struggle with. The thing that I like most about Eureka is it not only gives the algorithms for solving mathematical equations, it gives you a visual. And though you may not like the circles and you may not like the number bonds, when kids can understand how to decompose numbers using base 10, number since base 10, when kids can see that visual, I guarantee you that that will raise their level of mathematical knowledge and their ability to solve problems exponentially beyond where kids who just, here's the thing, you look at a map question, they're all word problems. And there's no solve this equation on a map test or any place you go in life. There's no place that's just going to say, here's an algorithm, go solve it, unless you're paying your electric bill. But with Eureka, it begins, it begins by asking kids to decompose numbers and think about it. And what processes are you going to put in place to be able to solve this? Yeah, is it painful right now? Yeah. Absolutely. And that's why I wanted to send, and that's why I did send 50 teachers to seriously ask any district around. They're like, oh my gosh, you sent 50 teachers to a week's training of this? I've sent 3. And so next summer, we're going to do the same thing. We are continuing professional development all year long, and we're going to start giving parents information about this. The thing about it is, being brand new, I didn't want to overwhelm people, and I didn't want people to automatically be turned off. We even told, principals even said, for the most part, don't send all the homework sets home. Just kind of go at this slow so we can kind of start slow. So I share your frustration. I understand your frustration. Trust me, I think everybody feels that pain. But the truth of the matter is, when we're on the other side of this, and it won't take very long, we will see huge benefits from this.
And we need it. We need it.
Eureka Mathematics is ranked #1 by 4 research committees. The people who put this together are from the Carnegie Foundation.
2 things I learned that you just said. They do, at the end of the lesson, do it the normal way, like we all were taught how to divide.
Yes.
They get to that at the end. And number 2, you don't always have to send homework home. If the exit ticket shows that they've got it,
that's exactly
then
right.
homework is not necessary.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Well, I think you ought to have Miss Landis do a video and put it out there for everybody to see it, because the way she explained it, totally get it.
Yeah.
But when your child brings it at home and you're trying to figure out what they're wanting the child to do, is 2 different things.
Yeah, it's like I said, especially when you have a couple different answers that may be right. They're like, just like you said, well, I can do it this way, or I can do it this way. But when they can do it 2 or 3 different ways, it's like,
Well, that was easy. That lesson was easy to get. But you bring us a 5th grade lesson. Let's throw that. I mean, they're different. It's not that easy.
yeah, well.
I mean, it may be same process, but
Yeah.
The 5th grade lesson I watched was 3.64 divided by 2. And then they did it by the lines and the circles, and then they did it that way. But maybe we need to send just a note home to parents saying, here's an online resource, and your child should have a problem set home with them for you to look at to see an example.
Absolutely.
Maybe
And
offer
invite
that at
parents
your
to-
open houses. Open houses should be sent.
Open houses
Yeah,
and maybe
Parent-teacher conference, we're going to have like a brochure.
But maybe
And
videotape some of
education.
our expert teachers that have been doing this for 2 or 3 years, because, yeah, I was really impressed. But I understand what you're saying about the frustration, because I got the same phone calls.
I get that. I knew that was going to happen, and
Are there parent resources we can
We
send
have to
home,
work through
Steve?
it. Excuse
Did
me?
this come with parent resources?
It does, yeah. I mean, everything's
something we
online. I
can
mean, we
send?
can print stuff off and send it home.
Or maybe just let the parents know it's online, because I saw on your page someone posted, oh, I went online and
That
found
was
blah,
my
blah,
wife.
blah.
She wasn't happy.
Yeah. Well, someone responded to her that they went online and
Found
found.
That was
resources.
one of his little
resource.
buddies, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Well, and I'll tell you one thing I like about it is that you said that there's more than one way to skin a cat, basically. Because I did math tutoring when my daughter was in 5th grade, and that's what I would tell the kids. I would say, just how does it make sense to you? How do you see it? You know, if this doesn't make sense, how does it make sense? And do it that way.
Yeah.
You know, and it's nice that they have that flexibility now that maybe wasn't there before. Because kids learn in different ways, and adults do too. And so I think that's something that I like that I've heard tonight.
I think it would
too.
be interesting to see which elementaries have the computers and are doing Zern, how they do compared to the elementaries that aren't doing Zern. Because I saw Zern as a great reinforcer, because they do the concept lesson and then they'd go back to their Chromebooks and they would be doing the very same thing, only they'd be moving the circles like with their fingers on the screens, and it was reinforcing what they were doing. So I'd be interested in knowing which elementaries have Chromebooks, which ones have a traveling set, and which ones don't have anything, because I really think they need them.
Well, lots of conversation on that, and hopefully we'll progress and move forward. So thank you all, everyone, and let's move on. Do we have any public comments this evening, Pat? Thank you. The consent agenda, has everybody had a chance to look through that? Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Derek. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you very much, Lori. It's been moved and seconded that we approve our consent agenda. Please vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. Takes us to our regular agenda. Our Memorandum of Understanding Collaborative Agreement on School Discipline. Mrs. Mwangi?
Yes, we have this evening an MOU in conjunction with the Joplin Police Department, Jasper County Juvenile Division, as well as Joplin Schools. And we are fortunate, thank you for coming this evening. I will have Josh Flora and our Jasper County crew come on up. We have been working for a while. I think this conversation actually started in a coffee shop with Dr. Moss, Judge Crane, and myself. And it was really a lot of, we're about continuous improvement. We're about continually trying to problem solve how to improve some of our processes. And one of the things that we constantly felt ourselves working with was our relationship with our SROs in our schools, with Joplin Police Department, working with the juvenile office. We've always had a tight bond, and we've always worked very well together. But passing papers between hands has always been a challenge with the processes of working between us. So what we have tonight is I will turn it over to Mr. Flora to kind of share the process we went through, the desired outcomes that we're looking for, and ultimately, the big bonus is that we are able to have a juvenile officer at Joplin High School serving Joplin schools solely. So I will turn it over to you.
I'm going to refer to them as the Justice Dream Team here. Mary did this. Mary Keese, he's the Jasper County Courts Administrator. We have Judge Crane with us tonight. Kim Albright, who now is the Joplin Schools Juvenile Officer. And we have Steve Norman, who is the Chief Juvenile Officer. So I appreciate y'all joining us tonight.
This is a lot of power in the room, blessing us with their presence tonight.
And so, so we're just going to talk about that partnership that we've been working on. The foundational pillar of this, I think we can all say, is student support. And so how do we best support our students? And so if we look at this partnership, what are we trying to do? And so we're trying to create a proactive approach that is positive. We know that relationships with kids is the way to go. And so through this partnership, through Kim's work at our school every day, we're able to build relationships with kids. And so using a proactive approach instead of a reactive approach, we feel is going to best benefit our students at the school. In addition, an outcome that we would like to see is a reduction in juvenile office referrals. And I know Judge Crane will talk about that in a minute. From the justice side is what they see as outcomes of students who enter the system. And so look to reduce those by using those proactive meetings with Kim every day in our building. And not the typical juvenile officer approach, more of a counseling, mentorship, that type of approach every day with our students. So that's kind of the foundational component that we're talking about here, and just supporting that. In addition, increased communication. I mean, just in the 4 weeks that we've been doing this, just the communication that we were able to have. She's in our building, but even across the district, I've been hearing feedback of just how nice it is to, like you said, not have things change hands multiple times. But you're having those conversations every day. We're having conversations about students every day. And so just doesn't seem that many students are falling through the cracks in that regard. And then a big one, I think, is to not take as much time to give students resources. So, you know, whatever it is, maybe it's a drug case or something like that, that we're able to plug students in quicker. We're able to get counseling or enter them into drug court or whatever it might be. So we're able to provide those resources much quicker than we have been in the past. And so those are kind of the outcomes that we would like to see of that out of this partnership. So how are we going to do that? We already mentioned the proactive approaches, proactive meetings that we will have. And so we will utilize those. We will have informal meetings on behaviors, attendance, and all those types of things. One thing we did as a district and the attendance committee that Brett Engel was on and several representatives across the district were on, we're looking at our attendance processes and, you know, reflecting on our own practices. Are we communicating with parents? You know, are we going through steps A, B, and C before we submit a referral to the juvenile office? Because we want, once we get their support, we want it to be meaningful. And so that's one thing we have done is, you know, I'm sure you all have heard about the nudge letters that we are working on. So the 5- and 7-day nudge letter that we will be sending out, that we will be calling parents along with Kim. And so just going through multiple stages before we go as a last resort with that juvenile office referral from the school. And then also, I'm sure you have access to the response matrix that we have developed in that partnership. And so just making sure that we're following that as a district, and they are following their part of that as the Jasper County Juvenile Office. And so that's kind of the rundown of the outcomes and how we're going to try to achieve those outcomes. I think one key component of this that we keep talking about is the data monitoring. You know, we want to know if what we are doing is working. And so we're currently setting up processes to monitor the data from this partnership. And so we will reflect on that, and hopefully, you know, at the end of the day, we keep our students in school, reduce suspensions, and so that's the ultimate goal of this partnership. So if Judge Crane will provide a justice lens to that.
All right, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to come this evening and discuss with you this, what I think is a great and exciting program to have within the Joplin schools and to answer any questions that you may have. I want to give you 3 statistics that kind of sums up what the juvenile office's position is in this matter. These statistics come from the National Center for Mental Health and Juvenile Justice. Students suspended or expelled are nearly 3 times as likely to be in contact with the juvenile justice system the next year than their peers. Being arrested doubles a student's likelihood of failing to graduate. Students who are arrested and subsequently are processed through the court system are 4 times more likely than non-arrested peers to fail to graduate. That's 4 times. And so some of you may be saying, why would a circuit judge care if a kid graduates from Joplin High School or not? When I took the bench, one of the first things I realized is a correlation between a lack of education and crime. And I started counting on my fingers and toes how many defendants had graduated from high school. I'm required to ask them in my questions by law what was the highest grade or their education level that they were completed during these plea agreements. And so every time I'd have a criminal docket, which would consist between 80 and 150 felony cases, 2 to 3 times a month, I would count on my fingers and toes how many I had, then I'd mark in little stick figures on my calendar and keep going. That took several years to get 20. I also started at the same time keeping a record, same way, on how many defendants that I had who had graduated from college. I have not got to 20 yet, okay? So then in my juvenile cases, I started seeing that the parents that were there on abuse and neglect who had had their children removed, they also did not have high school education. But perhaps worse, what I saw was that their children were missing 30, 40, 50, 60 days of school. So at that point in time, I asked myself, what can I do as a judge, and more importantly, as a presiding juvenile judge in Jasper County, what can we do to try to start alleviating this issue? And we've had the pleasure of working with the school district, Jopln Schools, since I've been the presiding judge for juvenile court for over 10 years. And we've done a lot of things. But the reason that I'm excited about this is that there are a couple things, is that as you hear from the statistics, the farther the kid goes into the juvenile justice system, the more likely that they are not going to graduate from high school. And you also know the statistics, that if you don't graduate high school, the relation to crime, et cetera, okay? So began thinking, what are we going to do to, we have some other programs that we do through the court system. Some of you are familiar with that. I won't go into those. But how are we going to keep them from even touching my courthouse or touching the juvenile office? And at the same time, I was having conversations with Dr. Ritter at the time, and we were just discussing our different philosophies on things. And he said something that really resonated with me. He said, I'd like to have somebody in the schools who can go out and develop relationships with the parents and with the kids, and that so that they know what that family needs and what their issues are, and at the same time would allow the family and kids to be able to come to and ask for help and have hope. And so I thought, why can't that be a juvenile officer? Why can't that be the person? Because we have access to a lot of services and people. And at the same time, the juvenile office had found programs from other states that, which we actually, Mr. DeMont or tell you as lawyers, we don't ever want to reinvent the wheel. So we took an MOU from that program and started adapting it to us. And so that's kind of how the program gave birth. And Dr. Moss came on the scene, and she was gracious, and she was great about getting excited and getting us started. And then we had meetings, and we got Joss and Sarah and the police, and next thing you know, we have the MOU, and we have Kim in there, and she's developing those relationships and things. So that's why I'm excited, because there is a certain echelon of kids that they do things that they need to be held accountable for, and we need to know why they're doing them, and we need to address those issues. And sometimes it takes some of the services that we have to provide to address those, but they don't rise to the level that we need to incarcerate them or take them out of the home, adjudicate them, and go through the legal process. And so it's our hope that we will get that echelon of kids out of, don't let them even touch Grace Art offices. And by the way, we have beautiful new offices and facilities that you haven't seen. You all will be invited to the opening, but we've got state-of-the-art stuff going in. It's all cool, but I got a certain level of kids, I don't even want them to touch that place. And then in the meantime, hopefully that it will help from the school perspective of we get immediate reaction. You know, we can dwell in the problem right then, and we all know, you know, that's a win-win. And so I am excited, and you guys have already had a long night, so I'm going to quit talking, but I can tell you if anybody has any questions or wants to go into it detail and further, I love talking about it. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kim and let you hear from her of what she's got going on.
Hi, good evening. So I'm very excited to be a part of this program. when I took my job as a juvenile officer, my main priority was to help kids. As cliche as that sounds, there's many different ways. If I get a referral and it says a juvenile has committed property damage, on paper that sounds pretty serious, and it doesn't take a lot to become a felony amount. When I can meet with the kids and the family, it may not be like it's presented on paper. You have to get in and you have to be able to work with the families. Being at the high school, I'm able to a lot of times make contact with the parents the day that the incident has occurred. They're more open to talk to me. It's kind of a less threatening situation, I guess would be the best way to explain it. I'm there on their turf. I'm there at the school. I do have access to a lot of resources. I can get in with the parents and the child, say, what is going on? What do you need? And they're more open to talk to me. We're able to develop relationships. I get to go to the cafeterias before school, after school, during lunch, give some high fives, talk to some kids. I've had 16 different kids come to my office just to talk to me. Not because they were in trouble, but my friend's cutting, or I'm wanting to run away, and I need you to tell me the implications of that. There's been some fights, so we're able to talk to them and find out what's going on, because most of the time a child doesn't wake up one morning and say, I'm going to go beat somebody up today. Usually there's a history or something going on. I can get in this position and I can talk to them and figure out what is going on and offer those resources to help. And I was at East yesterday and in the cafeteria, and I believe he was a 6th grader, come up and told me that another kid cheated on his math test. May sound simple, but I developed that connection, so if I do have to talk to that child again, he's going to remember that I listened to his friend cheating on his math test, and he's going to be more willing to talk to me. Had wonderful feedback from parents that I've met with that they appreciate addressing the situation the day it happens and at the school. And I'm very excited, and I think it's going to be, as the year goes along, I think we're going to find that those relationships just keep getting stronger.
So I'll say this, that positive climate that's in this desired outcome, if you don't hear what she just said about runaway and talking to the student about cutting, I mean, that gave me goosebumps just hearing that, because we're helping our kids. And so Kim's a sweet lady. I love her to death, and I very appreciate y'all for offering her up to us. So that's kind of the rundown of the partnership. If we answer any questions for you.
I have a question. When I was looking through I don't know if it was the MOU or the other, the matrix that's on there, does that follow our board policy? Because in board policy we do have, consequences and that sort of thing. Does that follow our board policy?
That is exactly where we took it from.
Okay. It looked like it.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't something that was different from that.
So are you guys an advocate for let me tell you where my mind's going here, because I'm very much proactive on whatever we can do to help our kids where it needs it bad. But in the same breath, where does the being, I don't want to say this, I want to make sure that the parents are involved at the time incidents happen,
Sure.
Things of that nature, because I think because of things that have happened in the past, I've heard that the parents aren't notified, the kids have already been talked to, and things like that. How are you going to be, who legally can being the judge, who legally can be an advocate? We've got to be careful with the school. There's that fine line, and I just want to make sure that we stay within
I'll talk a little bit about common practice for us, like a proactive meeting. We're never going to have a proactive meeting with Kim before we talk to the parent.
Okay.
Now, there are incidents that, the parents don't really get a choice in that because of the offense.
Correct.
But if it's a proactive approach, we're calling that parent ahead of time and saying, are you okay if we do this? 99% of parents are. Sometimes they say no.
Just because there was an incident where the parents weren't called and the kids were talked to prior to the parents being, and that's why I want to make sure we watch that protocol and we stay on that, because that's part of the policy on too. So I'm all for this. I don't want to be negative at all on it. I just want to, some parents do want to be involved.
That is
But
my
then there's
first
a
step.
lot, in your statistics, majority of them don't know how to be involved.
Yes, ma'am. My first step, if I'm going to be addressing a referral, my first step is to make a phone call to the parents.
Great.
Because that's very important as a parent of children in Joplin schools myself. That's how I would want to be treated, and I take that approach with every single case that I address, because the parents definitely need to be included in that.
Yeah. I can see that in your passion there.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Can I just one more question? How do you interact with the SROs? Like, what part does the SRO play in with your interactions with the kids and,
Sure.
and that sort of thing?
Let's say there's a delinquent offense, such as maybe a drug offense or an assault. The SRO will typically come to me or call me if I'm not in the building, and we'll kind of process the issue together. If there's video, if it's a fight, we'll watch it together and we'll make a team decision. Yes, this is an assault, or no, that's not quite an assault. Let's take that as a fight. We process that together, and then that kind of guides what I need to do on my end of the matrix.
Okay, so you are not replacing an SRO.
No, ma'am.
In the system.
No,
That's in
I'm a
addition
resource
to-
for the SROs,
so in addition to, okay.
and I like to say I'm a resource for the students most of all.
Yeah, okay.
You'll see in that response matrix that most of those offenses require juvenile officer and SRO consultation together to make a team decision.
And they've all been amazing to work with and process things with.
I'm going to move that we approve the MOU collaborative agreement. What's it called? Collaborative agreement on school discipline.
I'm going to second and say thank you so much.
Yes.
And I appreciate the relationships you're already making.
Thank you very
It's
much.
been moved and seconded. I would like to add my comment. Judge Crane, thank you for coming tonight, and the rest of the group as well. Those statistics that you stated are staggering, and I had absolutely no idea that that's what they were. So it's important that we all hear those and respond to those, and that's what this appears to be, keeping kids in school, saving lives. I ask that you vote.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, and there is no pride in authorship, Judge.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
And thank you to Mr. Flora. He has done a lot of groundwork for
Group, I'm going to ask you if you'd like a break at this time real quick, maybe 5 or 10 minutes. I'm okay, but I'm thinking of you.
Let's muddle through.
Let's muddle through. We're on
Okay,
item
right
2, on-site flu shots.
That is me. Have some really exciting news. So one thing that happened with the changing of insurance is previously we did not have preventative care, and now we do have preventative care, which includes the flu shot. So that kind of compounded how we went about making sure we brought on-site flu shots so our staff members could get those shots, so we keep them well and in the classroom. So we sent out for requesting for quotes. We reached out to Mercy Freeman CVS, put it out on the website, and what we have for you this evening, and the reason it's here for the action item is it just a new piece for us. Freeman, we are recommending for you tonight. They have graciously donated at $0 charge to our health plan. They will be giving free flu shots to every district insured employee. And then they have given us the lowest bid as well of $22.76 for non-district insured employees. And that also include their spouses. We will allow spouses to come get that as well. It includes an 18% contractual discount. And the third bonus is we gave a pretty specific date. We gave a range, but then we also gave a date knowing the benefits of flu shots in October. And they also came back with exactly what we had asked for that. So we are very pleased to present you tonight a recommendation of Freeman Health System to come on site to administer our flu shots this year.
So are they going to each
Zero
site?
cost to you.
Are they going to each site, or they're coming here and people
They
have
are
to
going to
come
all
here?
22 locations.
Wow.
Man, that is awesome.
That
Good
is
job.
awesome.
That is.
Wow, do I have a motion?
I move it.
I'll second.
It has been moved and seconded that the board approve on-site flu shot services by Freeman Health Systems. Please vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. Thank you. That moves us to our CDBG Grant Administration Contract Amendment for the Joplin Early Childhood Center Kitchen, which we are really happy to hear about.
Yes. Well, we have 3 action items that go together, and Dave is going to explain all of those in just a little brief history about how we got here, and he's been very instrumental in working with all the players, as well as Rick Keekle.
For the record, we're looking at items 3, 4, and 5.
Yes, that's right. Go ahead, Dave.
Well, it's exciting to come and bring you more good news. So I had received a phone call that there was additional monies going to be made available through the CDBG state funding source that could be made available to us. We put together a small list of some infrastructure things that we thought we could use those for in conjunction with the Early Childhood Center. Then they called and had come out of the meeting and they gave me the amount. And so after I picked my jaw up off the floor, and I want to say that they offered that to us, we're willing to allow us to extend our existing Joplin Early Childhood contract with all of the same players to do as a change order. So with that amount of money, we are desiring to not something that we wish maybe we'd have dealt with in hindsight with a full-service kitchen on site.
Yes.
And now that we've started a new year with the expanded amount of students that we have, really see the need for it. And so with the $259,000 that was offered to us through the CDBG, we want to move forward with an addition on the east side of the building to add a full-service kitchen to that facility so that we can begin to prepare those meals there on site for those students at early childhood. So the 3 pieces of that we will need to begin to deal with. The first is with Marks Nelson, a contract amendment with them. They are the administrator with the CDBG that helped us fund, and they were part of the initial process with Joplin Early Childhood. And I wanted to point out that I'm hoping that the reason that they offered this money to Joplin schools was because of the good looks of the facilities director.
I'm sure
But
that's
that may be a stretch. So, but I really do feel like because of the success of the early childhood project that we had, the great funding source that we had, the great partnership that we had with both local, state, and federal monies there, and because of the good stewardship that we used in that is why we were offered that. So anyway, so then first item is additional grant administrative services for $4,800 for Marks Nelson to administer that grant with us.
Shall we take these separately or is 3 is together?
All
Let's put them all.
together.
Keep
Okay.
presenting.
All right, I'll keep talking.
Dr.
The
Lincoln says we have
second
to get
piece
separate.
of
I'm sorry.
You're talking about 3 separate expenditures of money, and each one takes a vote of the board.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to
So moved.
approve? Thank you, Derek. It's been moved that we approve
I'll second.
$4,800 for the proposed kitchen addition at Joplin Early Childhood Center to the grant administrator, and seconded by Dr. Ford. Is there any additional discussion on that? Please vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. Sorry about that, Dave. Go ahead.
Not a problem, not a problem. Okay, the second piece of the puzzle is a proposal to include Hollis Miller, our architect, who, since even the completion of our project, we received a token of their appreciation from us with handwritten notes and a book of collected photographs that if you get a chance to see it, I believe it's still here in the building, you want to take a look at that. It just encourages the pride that we have in that facility. So we want to include them with Amendment 007 for $22,100 for their architectural service for design and the inspections necessary to go along with the construction of the kitchen addition.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Derek. It's been moved and seconded by.
I'll second.
Thank you, Jennifer. It's moved and seconded that we approve the contract for Hollis and Miller for $22,100 for additional design services and special inspections for the kitchen addition at Joplin Early Childhood Center. Please vote.
Yes.
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 Okay, and then the third and final piece is the engineer, Smith & Boucher, who was part of the original project as well. This would be all of your mechanical, electrical, plumbing, which there will be a substantial amount of that included with, of course, a kitchen facility. And so we're asking for you to approve tonight the amount of $8,500 and 2 anticipated site visits for making sure that everything is taken care of properly.
I move that we continue with Smith & Boucher as our engineers for this project.
I'll second. Oh, go ahead.
Thank you, Lori and Dr. Ford. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the expenditure towards, who are we on here?
Smith & Boucher.
Smith & Boucher, thank you. Please vote.
Yes.
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 Yes, I said Boucher, it's Boucher, pardon me. Yes, Boucher. There you go. Thank you, Dave.
Dave, I do have a question or maybe a suggestion. The fence that's on the, terrible directions, the fence that's on the west side around the playground, if there's any money, could we put in a taller fence? Because that fence looks short enough that people could just hop right over that and get into our students. I actually had a parent point that out to me, and so I drove by to see maybe a little taller fence on that side.
Let me see what we can look into
Okay.
and do. And just as a side note, the shade structures that you approved a few months ago were installed today.
Oh.
And so we have a nice couple of blue ones and one green one that really will be beneficial. Now that it's getting into fall and winter time, maybe not as beneficial, but I can guarantee you when things start to get up, it's appreciated. So we will be following up with a change order from Crossland Construction once we have the drawings and they've been able to put that pricing together. So we will be returning for that portion as well.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Enrollment projection data analysis, Dr. Saketa.
Okay, as Debbie said earlier, there was a little concern about some of our schools becoming overcrowded at some point in time. The last time we looked at enrollment projections and capacity of different schools and different things was back in 2010, okay? And so we had enrollment projections, and one of the things that did come out in that enrollment projection was that certain parts of the city would probably experience more growth than others. And we're tending to see, the tendency is, it seems to be more from Main Street to the east than it is Main Street to the west. That's the tendency we're seeing. It's been a while, but we also had the Jopln tornado, which has changed a lot of things. And it's changed property shapes, different apartment complexes coming in and everything else. And we find it necessary to move forward to start looking again for the next 5 to 10 years about where the growth is going to be, what the odds are of different types of growth patterns in different areas. For instance, certain kind of apartment complexes or developments produce a certain number of kids per household, a different fractional number. We know parents aren't having as many kids, so it seems, as they did 35, 40 years ago, but we need to project outward. And we also have some growth that is happening all over in different parts of the city, and it's going to affect our different schools separately. We went through a big, as you know, attendance zone change back several years ago, and what we would like to do is get the best information possible here, so the changes that we make are as minimal as possible. And it would also help us as we think down the road for additions to buildings, schools, and all those kind of things down the road when the board and long-range facility planning wants to get geared up for something like that at some point in time down the road. So that is probably going to be, in not that many years from now. And so we want to project some things for the future. We want to make sure the capacity of our schools is sufficient for what we need. And if we end up building onto schools at some point down the road, this will help us with that. And also, there's just a lot of things we can learn and glean from a new, fresh look, especially after the tornado.
Joplin is growing.
Yes.
So I will move that we approve the contract with Business Information Systems to perform the demographic analysis.
Very good.
I would second.
It's been moved by Lori and seconded by Brent that we approve the contract services of Business Information Services for $25,550. That is $550 more than the lowest bid, but Business Information Services was selected based on their references, their extensive work in the state of Missouri, and a previous business history with the school district. And I will say that it is a very competitive bid as well. So please vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. Thank you, Dr. Saketa. Accounts payable, Dr. Langford.
You have accounts payable before you. Last month, I think it was over $8 million. But it depends when how it all falls as far as the check cycles are concerned. But if you take a look at the bills that are there, again, most of the expense are relative to the capital projects improvements that we made during the year. We paid some insurance bills, but most of it has to do with the opening of school and getting supplies, and it's everything I can see is normal operational expense.
Thank you, Dr. Langford. Does anybody have any questions for Dr. Langford?
I move we pay our bills.
I'll second.
Thank you, Dr. Ford, for moving, and Lori for seconding that we approve payment of our accounts payable. Please vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. Securely 24 Suite Auditor Premium. Dr. Saketa.
Yes, we've been working with the Securely company for the last, what is it, Eric, a couple years anyway? About a year and a half. About a year and a half, yeah. About a year and a half. And what they do is they provide us information daily, by the minute, whatever. It doesn't matter. Whenever there's a search or some chatter or an email or something that comes across the district Wi-Fi system that causes us concern that a student might say or do, or they predict they may do, or whatever. We get, just a few emails every day, but we feel like that we're checking up on our kids, especially if there's a search that they're doing, that causes us concern. The vast majority of the time, it's obviously something that might be for a class or something like that, but there are some exchanges through email and so on through the system that we want to kind of get ahead of, that we're able to get that information ahead of time. Eric and Jim Hounsell do a very good job of sending that email directly to the principal and or the counselor or both right there, and so that they can deal with it immediately, and then we follow up on it. And the principals, I have to say, are doing an excellent job of following up on it daily. So it's just another layer of support to try to get in front of some things before hopefully something happens that we don't want to happen. Anything you want to add on that, Eric? There is a cost to the service now.
Yeah.
We kind of had a good deal before.
Yeah, we were beta testing it, so it was free the first year or so. But then now that they're ready to move out of beta, there's going to be a cost, but they're cutting us a price break because we were one of the beta testers. Normally, it's going to cost double what is listed. I don't know if that's in the action
It is.
item.
It states that we're paying a 50% rate.
So the purchase agreement says we're doing 24 months for $27,562.50. So we're making two payments of 13 something apiece.
Yes.
So approving this, we're really approving it for 2 years because the contract says 2 years, and we're saying we'll pay half now, half next year, or we're just approving it for just this year?
Well, my hope is you guys will save for both years and we can do
Okay.
that, or we can just do it the first year.
Yeah. No, I need to do both
We
years. I just
cannot
want to make sure.
The provision indicates that we cannot cancel for the second year.
Right.
Those can be fought, but
And this was already in your
messy.
budget, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would vote with the expectation of doing it 2 years.
Okay. Yep. I agree.
Do we have a
I
motion?
move we approve Securely 24 Suite.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Dr. Ford. It's been moved and seconded by Deborah Gould. Please vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. Spyglass snapshot audit agreement. Again, Dr. Saketa.
Okay, the last item I have is a telecom and Wi-Fi auditing service. We've been approached a while back about this possibility, and we found out from several districts. In fact, I talked to another local district today in a meeting that used the service as well. Essentially what it is an auditing service comes in, looks at your telephone bills, looks at your Wi-Fi expenditures, gets 2 months, this particular vendor wants 2 months worth of bills. One of the vendors I spoke to only wanted a month. And they specialize 2 ways. One, they go retroactive and look for lines that you weren't using, expenditures that were slipped in on a bill, possibly that you don't have any idea about. If you all can read your phone bills at home very well, come explain it to me. And those kind of things. And you can imagine how complex it is for a school district or a big organization. So they look at those, and then what they do is you get 50% of that retroactive cost savings. So let's say, for example, we get $10,000 back, they would keep $5,000 of that. But there's a district not far from us that I think, what was it, 55,000? Wow. And a lot smaller than us, to put it that way. So we'll see. We don't know. We don't know until the audit. I think they got $55,000 back. So that's one good thing. So that's finding $55,000 and we get to keep half or whatever it is they find in our case. So moving forward, the company wants to lock in the contracts and lock in pricing for you for a long term. So what the idea there is, whatever they find long term, they will keep for the first 10 months, but our bill will not go any higher. So I'll give you an example. Let's say our phone bill was $5,000 a month, and they found $1,000 worth of savings. We still pay $5,000 for 10 months, but after the 10th month rolls off, then we get to keep the extra or we pay $1,000 less. You see what I'm saying? So that's the way it works. Found 3 companies that do this, and the company that we're recommending, in my opinion, based on all the conversations we've had and everything else, this is what they specialize in, and I feel like this is a good approach from us, at least for Missouri superintendents that we've talked to have been all very favorable with the company.
I have a question. Eric,
Pardon me? Well, when we called them back, they went to 10.
Oh, did they?
Yep.
You negotiate.
Thank you. It was originally 12 months that they would retain our what they saved us.
Yeah, that's
but
right.
Dr. Saketa was able to get it reduced to 10.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I forgot.
And the
Another
40%.
benefit. They only get 40% on retroactive, and we get 60. The first thing was
Right.
50, 50, 12 months. Then the next thing that came back, you get 60% on retroactive, and you only have to deal with this for 10 months. Sorry about that. Thank you.
Negotiate.
so
Come on,
we get
Carrie,
a
that's
lot
not
of
good
our-
enough. You can do better than that.
As we've improved our Wi-Fi upgrades and all that sort of stuff, and new lines and everything, I can't remember what it's called, but it's something that we get a, like.
E-rate.
It's through E-rate.
Yes.
But this doesn't look at the devices we bought, but just the service that we
Okay, but
use
that's
to
not
reach the
part of-
outside.
But that's not part of the E-rate.
It is part of the E-rate, but they'll look at what we pay and if there's any savings there. But I think they'll mostly be looking at our bus Wi-Fi and the services that we pay through the bus Wi-Fi, and if they can trim down there.
Okay, so none of that's affected, so I mean, like, so we get these rebates or whatever, the discounts or money back from the E-rate thing, so we wouldn't have to give back part of that, because is that based on what we?
We will not do that because we have total control on what we decide we will go with.
And that wouldn't really affect it. All that would do going forward is, instead of paying, say, like 60 like we pay for the ISP provider to go to the outside, if they trimmed it down to 40, then we would just pay the 80/20 or whatever we're paying in that mix there, because it would just reduce it so
Okay, but I guess
our
I
share
guess-
would be less and the government share would be less.
Okay, but so like if they go retroactive, though, are we gonna have to give part of that back because that was based on a percentage?
Well, we could double check on that, and then we can just not let that be one of the recommendations we allow through.
They will give us a series of recommendations, and it's our choice on which ones to take. So it would not be advantageous to us, you're exactly right, to go back and then have to give money back or not be able to accept something. So, and we can say, you know, we could get thousands and thousands of dollars and say, no, we don't want to do anything. We're not going to do that, but we also don't want to do what you're saying, be concerned about what you're saying and give. So we got to look at the total package before
I just don't want
we say go.
to bite off our nose to spite our face for that.
Right.
Yeah, we're not committed to any of the recommendations they bring forth. It's only after we review the recommendations and the board decides we want to go with these, then that's what we do.
And there's no charge on the audit.
Yeah, there's no charge on that.
I'd move that we approve the agreement for spyglass audit.
I'll second.
Brent, Derek, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the Spyglass Snapshot Audit Agreement. If there's no further discussion, please vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. Policies for first reading, Dr. Moss.
Do we have securely 24 suite?
We already did that.
We got
Oh,
that?
we did.
No, we did.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we
Okay.
did.
Thought we had 2 items for that.
We did, but we went over both of them.
Okay, my bad. Yes, you have policies for first reading, and as Jennifer shared earlier, the majority of these are legislatively driven because they pertain to various federal programs through ESSA. There are a few that are in response to state law. The first one, the taxing and barring authority and limitations, we've reviewed that, and we are currently in compliance. Our municipal bond advisor is George K. Baum, and we've posted all our tax rate hearings properly, so this is cleanup policy in a way for that piece. But we would recommend that these all be approved for first reading.
And are we approving all policies together? Yes. Okay.
Is that your motion, Dr. Ford?
That's my motion. We approve all of these policies together.
Thank you, Doctor, and it's seconded by Derek. It looks like items 10A through M. If anybody has any questions, please direct those now towards the person whose name appears beside the policy. If there are no questions, please vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. Plus deltas, and this is your item. I apologize, please.
Oh, no, you go right ahead. Plus deltas, I think we have a lot to celebrate tonight, and even though Judge Crane and her entourage has left, and Josh and Janet, it's just swelling me with good tidings for those positive moves that we've made tonight, and things we're already seeing a result of building relationships and servicing our kids.
And I'm going to call the Eureka Map presentation at Plus Delta as well. There was a lot of passion there, and that's great. That's what it's all about. And we continue to advance forward, realizing we can continue to improve, and I anticipate that's what we will do.
We're going to celebrate the kitchen at the Early Childhood Center.
Great point.
That is awesome.
We
to
all worried
receive
about
those
that
extra
when it was
funds.
being built. We were going to truck food back and forth between Irving and the Early Childhood Development Center, and now it looks like we're going to cure that issue.
And especially since we've added classrooms there, we're serving 80 more students this year than we did last year because of adding those 2 morning and 2 afternoon classrooms. And so we are definitely seeing that need.
I got no deltas tonight.
I just have one question about Columbia Safe Room update. Anything?
Still working on the
drilling?
borings, yes.
Okay.
Still working on the borings. I haven't heard anything today any different.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, Dr. Saketa. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Derek has been moved and seconded. Thank you, Deborah. It's been moved and seconded. Please vote.
Yes.
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 Yes.